Welcome to the Crucible. This is episode 3. I'm your host, Tiny Grimes, and as always, I'm joined by the Rebel Spy, Mike. How's it going, Mike?
What's up? It's going awesome. How about you?
Not bad, not bad. I'm just excited that we got to play 4 games in person yesterday.
Yep.
I printed up a bunch of decks. I've got this place next to me. They've never asked me any questions about what they're printing. I'm terrified that one time they're going to be like, these look like they're copyrighted images. And I'm going to be like, what? No, I drew all this artwork myself. What are you talking about? Oh, man. But it was a good time.
Nice.
How'd you feel about the games?
I loved it, man. I just want to get my hands on a deck. On my deck. You know what I mean? Like, I want my own. I want that sense of ownership.
What was fun about it is I printed up 4 decks that I didn't know anything about. And so it made it really fun and interesting. On TTS, when we just had the 5 decks, I always knew everything in my opponent's deck, even though I wasn't supposed to. But in this game, you made lots of plays where I was like, that's a card? Oh, that card wrecked me. I didn't even know it existed. That was really fun.
Yeah, and it was the same both ways. Like, there were just things that you don't even know that you have to play around because you don't know they exist, and that's exciting.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Okay, so I'm going to ask you the question I asked you last time.
All right.
Hype meter. Is it still going up, or is it kind of finally plateaued, or where are we at?
Playing in person, man, my hype meter is like up here. It was so fun to actually like have cards in front of me and play the game like across from another human being. I mean, I've always enjoyed playing in person more than on the internet. So it just kind of reinforced how fun the game is, and how much more fun it is in person than on the internet.
I feel the exact same way. My hype had definitely plateaued, which is not a bad thing. It's still way high, but it was just kind of like, okay, playing the same decks on TTS. No one really knows how to play bait and switch, so I can't even really play the card. Otherwise, it's pointless. And then we played in person with decks we hadn't played before, and like you said, in person is a million times more fun. And then my hype meter was like, wrong. We're still climbing. I was like, really? I can climb higher? This is crazy town.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. I do want to talk about a trap card that I think we learned about in our 4 games, which is, can you guess the trap card, Mike?
Oh yeah. This card has been a trap for many people, Jay included when I played some games against him online. I'm guessing it is the Pit Lord.
It is, but how could it be bad? It has 2 amber you get when he comes into play. He's 9 power. I was able to play 2 on the same turn. So I got 4 amber, 2 giant creatures, immediately lost the game.
Yeah, it's just so easy to lock yourself out of it because you can only play disc. Eventually you're not going to have any disc cards in your hand, and you're going to have to try and get rid of your Pit Lord somehow. And if your opponent either doesn't have any creatures on the board for you to fight, or just refuses to let you fight with it using other things, then it's just it's a problem. Like when I played against Jay, I had 2 two Witch of the Eyes out, which let you grab a card from your discard pile, and in my discard pile I had Fog. And then I had another card that gained a bunch of amber. So I basically just like he got himself stuck in this loop because he played that card, where all I had to do was call Untamed and grab those 2 cards out of my discard pile. He couldn't attack, so he couldn't get rid of his Pit Lord. And then I played the amber card, and it was just like, that was it. He couldn't win.
So basically you're saying every turn he just had to smile and pass?
Yep.
Oh, wow, that's the worst. I was in a better spot than that. I'm not crazy. You had a giant board, so I knew I'd be able to fight every turn. The downside of the Pit Lord is his 9 strength. If it was only 3 or 4, you could play him. Yes, you'd be locked in. But if you're smart, if they have a big board, the next turn you trade him off. But there's just nothing you can do. The only thing you can do is go like Pit Lord plus another guy, immediately Hand of Dis it. That's like the only way to play Pit Lord. I said before, like someone said, who thinks Pit Lord is good on Facebook? And I was like, I think that card is terrible. But I wanted to play it, Mike. Like I got 2 in my hand. And I was like, you know what? If there ever was a moment to play a Pit Lord, it's now. Let's see how bad it is. It's bad. It's bad. That card is garbage.
Yeah, I think that if you do play it, which, I mean, you're going to want to play it sometimes, right? But I think that you have to either have, like, key to dis out or like Hand of Dis in your hand with another dude where you can kill it yourself. Like you have to have a way in Dis to be able to kill it yourself, basically, like in hand before you play it, just so that you have an eject button to be able to get yourself out of that situation. Otherwise, you are kind of hamstringing yourself, which is never fun.
I just thought of some other scenarios where you would want to play him. Like, what if you had two baubles? So now you're getting to play your two other guys every turn. Maybe you have another Omni effect. The problem with that is that looks enticing, but if your opponent is really smart, what they're going to do is just kill all
the other guys,
non-disc things, and then you're still stuck. Like a 9-power dude that can fight once a turn or reap once a turn is not good. Getting 1 amber per turn is not going to win you a game of Keyforge.
Yeah. I think I told you, or I talked about this with you a little bit yesterday, but it feels like when you play that card, you're putting your opponent in the driver's seat, and they have all the control over the game at that point, where they can kind of decide how they want your turns to play out and whether or not they're going to allow you to kill, like to attack with your pit lord against your opponent's stuff. So it's just a very dangerous card to play.
I have a feeling that you had bigger creatures in your hand, and you were like, no, thank you. I will choose not to play these giant
There's no reason to. Yeah,
you can hit my 2 5 times if you want. If the game lasts that long, go for it.
Yep.
Yeah, I totally agree. You give up complete control over the game, and at that point you're just hoping things go your way, or that your opponent is a total lunatic and lets you do things. But
yeah.
Unfortunately, Mike, you're not a lunatic. Well, you are a lunatic, but not in that way. All right. I want to talk about, especially since FFG is about to do a stream where they're going to clarify some things, we hope. Richard Garfield did a really cool AMA, and he said something really interesting where he talked about what he thinks is going to happen is not that decks are going to get changed, right? So it's not going to be like I can save my world's winning deck 4 worlds. It's completely free of chains. But that's going to be cards, or maybe combinations of cards, right? Like a bait and switch is 1 chain, but if you have a bait and switch and the Logos card that locks you out of actions, now it's 2 chains or something. Do you like that approach more, or do you think it should be more based on decks?
No, I like that way more. It's kind of a way for them to balance cards individually, without having to errata anything. So they're doing something similar with the X-Wing app, where they can just go in and kind of change point costs on the fly between events. If this pilot is crazy good and
Darth
everybody's winning with it.
His name's Darth Vader.
Okay, so Darth Vader's too good somehow. Darth Vader should be too good, but Darth Vader's winning literally everything. They can be like, all right, we're adjusting Vader so that his point cost is 3 points higher or whatever. So they can do that with the app in Keyforge, which is awesome, and they can take sort of a snapshot of what people are winning with, what decks people are winning with, and the cards in those decks, and hopefully have enough data to where they can come up with some kind of stats on win rates of particular cards and particular combinations of the cards that they can then use to add chains to your deck if it contains those cards. And maybe there's cards that are really bad, and it's you have this card which is really good, and then you have this card which is just awful, and so it kind of negates each other, and you don't get as many chains as you would otherwise.
That would be funny.
So I think
that.
Yeah, there's so much potential there for them to be able to try and balance the game, sort of at any time, based on the information that they're gathering, without sacrificing the text on the card, which I think is huge. I've always hated erratas of card text because it just feels bad for everybody. A new player opens their deck, the cards don't play as they clearly look like they should play. That's a problem. But adding chains is such a simple mechanic, especially if it happens at the beginning of a game. You don't have to know anything beyond that. You just you look in your app, you see how many chains your deck gets, and that's it. That's all you have to remember in your head.
Yeah, I like that a lot as well. I said before that's how I hope they would do it, because I think you could be too sneaky the other way.
Right.
My one concern was that the two new players get their decks, they open them, and the one guy goes, "What? What do you mean I have 3 chains? What's a chain? Like, that could be frustrating. But on the other hand, what would be more frustrating is if one person opened a broken deck, the other person didn't, and they whomped them for 14 straight games, and then they both quit the game because the game's unbalanced and dumb.
Right.
So I think that actually works really well.
Yeah, yeah. I think it makes a ton of sense. And I mean, like, if people are worried about that, like, they can always just not play with the chains.
Exactly.
If
you don't
it's not
have
turn.
to open the app.
So,
FFG's probably, I say probably, not going to knock on your door and be like, excuse me, I see you're not running the chains. I don't think there's like a spy camera in each box. I hope there is, kind of.
I mean, I wouldn't be so sure.
All right. Okay, last thing about Richard Garfield. I just want to clarify something. I feel like some people are under the impression that when Richard Garfield speaks, he speaks for this game. And I don't think that's the case. I think he speaks for what he would like to see happen with the game. And I'm sure he has certainly more influence than, say, you or I. But I think the bottom line is FFG will be making decisions, not just what they think is best for the game, but like what's most doable for them, what they can actually manage. Mm-hmm. And so I think some of what we hear from him is kind of like wishful thinking. I'm curious, what do you think about that? Do you think we should take everything he says as going to happen, or is it more like a wish list?
No, I think you're right. In the AMA, he made it pretty clear that his opinions were not FFG's opinions necessarily, and that this is not necessarily what FFG is going to do, but here's what I had in mind when I designed this thing. Yeah. So I hope that they take his ideas into account and implement them, because they're all great ideas. So it's it'd be foolish of them not to.
He has a PhD in awesomeness, by the way, so that's pretty good.
Exactly, yeah.
My PhD is just in history. I'm a loser compared to him.
You must have done something wrong along the way, man.
Definitely did a lot of things wrong, man. That's clear.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on from that then. My next question for you is power combos. So we saw one of these, Library Access. You and I played Library Access, which says every time you play a card this turn, draw another card. What do you think? 12 cards I played, maybe put 5 creatures on the board?
Yeah, something like that. It was pretty crazy.
And the game basically fell over after that. And so my question for you is this. Are you worried that the competitive decks, obviously not all the casual decks, but most competitive decks will have 1 to 2 totally absurd combos that are game-breaking, like the damage everyone, heal everyone, get an amber, 18 amber, booyah. Like, are we worried that that's going to dominate the game over the incremental plays? What do you think?
So I don't think we've seen enough decks for me to be worried about it. But in other games where that is sort of the norm, like, those games are not fun for me at all. Like, we were talking about this yesterday. Like, we both briefly tried to get into the Pokemon card game, and like every game is like that, where you just kind of play solitaire, and whoever pulls off the combo first wins.
Thing of Pokemon. You're like, is it my action now? Okay, hold on. I get one action, right? Here are my 18 plays that make up my one action. I've almost won your action. I'm going to take 27 plays and win. Oh, cool. Good game, sir.
Yep.
There's Pokemon. Mm-hmm. Okay, go ahead.
Yep, for sure. And then that is, to me, like, super boring, not fun, not interactive at all. So I hope that Keyforge is not like that, and the games don't turn into that being the norm. But I don't think that we've seen enough decks out there to decide whether or not that is a real possibility. There are certain cards that I might be a little bit worried about, like Library Access. I think that's a pretty easy card to abuse.
7 chains.
Yeah, exactly. Except the chains mechanic, makes it so that maybe it's not, going to be a problem. Maybe if you have Library Access and you have a few other cards in your deck, you just start the game with 5 chains and then.
You know what card is not good if you have a ton of chains? Library Access, because you only have 4 cards in your hand.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, so you're not too worried about it. I think I'm a little more worried than you. I think this is rubbing some people the wrong way, actually, is I am a min-maxing competitive player normally. I don't think I'm going to be as much in this game, because it's kind of the whole point of this game for me. But I can see that mentality. And if there is a real world championship and things like that, the decks people are going to be opening 50 decks to try to get are the decks with the broken cards and the broken combos. And unless FFG is very, very rigorous with how many chains and that kind of stuff, those will be the decks we'll see at the top levels. I don't think it's an issue for casual play. I think for casual play it's going to be a one every now and then. But at the highest levels of competition, I think we're going to see a lot of those types of decks, mainly because of the consistency. In the last 2 days, I've played Library Access 3 times. I had one terrible turn where I only played 4 cards and then drew, up to my 6. That was terrible for a Library Access turn. The one against you was good. It was like 12, and then the other one was like 20. Like, it was so crazy that I emptied my whole deck, cycled back in my deck, and was able to draw the bait and switch again that I had already played and play it again. Like, it was so powerful that my opponent was like ready to just quit and walk away because it was so absurd. I'm a little afraid that's going to be almost the norm at the highest levels, but like we both said, chains fixes a lot of that. So FFG, balls in your court, what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's really, really interesting to me how much of sort of what we like, how we perceive the game going forward has to do with organized play and with the chains mechanic and with how they actually try and balance things.
I really feel like there's two distinct games going on here. There is a couple of friends get together, open some packs, and have a blast. And I think that's going to be the most fun way to play this. I think the least fun way to play this is going to be competition at the highest level, which really pains me because that's the kind of person that I generally am.
Yeah.
But I feel like this game is going to have the most growing pains at that place. And if FFG does it perfectly, it'll come off great. But I feel like there's a lot of room for error there, and I'm a little bit worried. Less so for me, like I said. I think I'm just going to be the hey, Mike, let's do something fun. Let's go to the shop. We'll each spend $30. We'll buy 3 decks. We'll play a best of 5 series with our 3 decks. Like, that's going to be super fun.
That's going to be awesome.
But going to, a regional tournament with 100 people, for me, that's my favorite part of Star Wars Destiny. I have a feeling it's going to be my least favorite part of Keyforge.
Yeah. I mean, but that's okay, because, you'll have, Destiny for that anyway. So it's you can have both.
Yeah.
I'm excited to just, grab a couple decks, head out to, the bar and just, play some games with a friend at a bar. That just sounds like a fun time.
Fair enough. I'm definitely excited for that. All right, let's move on to my next question of the day, and that is this, Mike. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Bait and switch, man. People have been going... I don't want to say going crazy about bait and switch, but there have been endless conversations on Discord and elsewhere about how this card is broken. Legit broken, is a problem for the game, and people are worried. Now, obviously, you could just stick a couple chains on the deck, and that's fine. But people are worried beyond that, that this is a game-breaking card. So my question for you is, do you think it is? Do you think it's a game-breaking card?
I don't know if it's a game-breaking card, but I think that it, the thing I like about it least is that it really punishes new players that don't know that it exists, number one, and haven't figured out how to play around it, two. It feels so bad to get, caught with your pants down with that card.
Okay.
Man, it just feels it is a viscerally bad feeling to have it. You have 12 amber, your opponent bait and switches you, all of a sudden they're getting a key and you're not.
And they had 6, made a key, and now they can make another key off your amber.
Right. Exactly. Yep. So, and I to a certain extent, I sort of feel a similar way to a lesser extent about just the steal mechanic in general. I think stealing is very feel bad because sort of your opponent gets to capitalize on your work, just like in real life.
Just like it. That's a good point. I was walking down the street and this guy was like, "Hey man, I need some amber. I'm gonna take your amber," and it turns out it was dollars, and I was sad. That's a good point. And then he bait and switched our wallets. He switched them. Turns out his was empty, and mine was full.
There you go.
You put it like that. Yeah, you're right. That's terrible, Mike. It's a pretty good analogy. I'm going to agree with a lot of what you said. I think for new players, it is the worst, right? Like, it is the worst feeling ever. I will try my darndest to never play a deck with bait and switch against a new player. For that very reason. They have no idea how to play around it. Every time, every new player gets hit with it once and is very sad. The problem I found is that there are a lot of players that get hit by it all the time. And that kind of blows my mind. I have not been hit by it yet. I've played against it several times. I'm very careful when I know I'm playing against the Shadows deck. But then again, I don't tend to play decks that are relying on, like, Hunting Witch into 1,000,000 amber, or do the damage and then heal and get 1,000,000 amber. I don't play decks like that generally, but I also think that illustrates the good side of bait and switch, is that it's like a check for those decks, those combo decks we were talking about that would win in a turn, right? If you could get 18 amber in a turn and there wasn't an answer, that's the most feel bad thing in the world. You would just be like, this game is dumb and broken. Like, you just won in one turn and then just made keys over the next 3 turns and won. This game is dumb. Bait and switch at least has a check to that and has to make you think, like, okay, I could get 11 amber this turn, or I could get 18. Maybe I should just go with 11. 11 is a pretty dang good turn, and a bait and switch would hurt, but 18 a switch would hurt even more.
Yeah, I mean, I take your point, but there are cards that already do that I think do it in a more fair way. There's the card Effervescent Principle, which it like each player gets rid of half of their amber or something like that. So like if someone grabs 12, they get cut down to 6. There's another one where it's like your opponent loses amber until they have 6. So there's other ways already in the game to do something similar that's not quite as punishing and not as swingy, where like as the bait and switch player, like I just forged a key, you just got your amber, so you can forge a key and keep up, and now I get to play bait and switch, put you off your key, and then probably play other cards in Shadows to steal the rest of your amber, or to gain amber in other ways, and I have enough to gain a key now, and you're way behind. So it's just super punishing. Like we had a game yesterday where you had I knew you had bait and switch in your hand. I think you knew that I had bait and switch in my hand, and you had the lash on the board, which is like your opponent's key cost +3.
If I choose dis and activate it.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's dicey.
Yeah, I mean it is I knew I had to get to above 6 amber. Like I had to hit 9, otherwise you would do that and you wouldn't let me forge.
Right.
And when I do that, you get to bait and switch and steal more of my amber, and then if I'm going to try and respond with bait and switch, like my bait and switch sucks because I'm only getting like 1.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's situations like that where like you can kind of trap your opponent into not being able to play around it as easily, or almost at all, without risking just losing off of it.
Yeah.
So that's my concern. I'm not saying that it's a card that is busted, shouldn't be in the game, etc. But I do think it is very good, very punishing. I would imagine that would be a card that would be handicapped if possible.
Yeah, and again, I agree with all that, but I also think it's a really, really high skill card. Like in that scenario you describe, I think what you do is you try to wait till I get to 5, and then you get to 9, right? And then if I do, like, if you're able to bait and switch out at that point, I'm only getting 2, which isn't that bad. And then I, as the bait and switch player, I'm trying not to get to 5, right? Because I'm like, okay, I need to hang out at like 3. And so it sets up like this whole really interesting dynamic, I think, which is really exciting and fun to me. Someone who has a lot of experience with the bait and switch mechanic, but I think you're definitely right. For someone who doesn't, it's really hard. Like, I view bait and switch as a card that says it gives you no amber when you play it, and it basically says steal 2 unless your opponent does something insane. and I usually will use it against an experienced player to just steal 2. Like, that's what I ended up doing to you. I had all that stuff going, but in order to do that, I would have had to go call dis. I only have 1 discard and keep doing that and totally slow my own game down. And I realized, I'll just bait and switch you for 2. It'll be really punishing because it'll drop you below a key. It takes me to a key. I get a key. I know you have a bait and switch. Now you're in a tough spot because you have more than me, and I can just kind of play around your bait and switch the rest of the game, which I did. You never found a moment to play it. So I agree with you in one way, and I definitely think I wouldn't be shocked if it got a chain. My point is just I don't think it's as good as people think it is. I think what you should do if you hate playing against that card, play with the card. Because I think yesterday you got a good feeling of that, of having it, like at the end of the game I was like, Mike, haven't you had a bait and switch in your hand forever? And you were like, yeah, I never had a moment to play it. And I was like, no, you had that moment where you could have stolen 2 and knocked me down a little bit. And you were like, what? That's not how you play bait and switch. You got to go for a million, Amber.
Yeah, like after that game, I really kind of got to see sort of like the best time to play that card, at least in that game that we played.
Yeah.
Because I think that was probably my second or third game playing with the card, and maybe my third or fourth time playing against the card. But yeah, I definitely haven't played with it as much as you have. But it is definitely skill testing, which I do think is a good thing. So
yeah, I will agree with this though. The last thing, if your opponent's plan, right, like if what their deck has given them is to build towards 1 monster turn and use up to propel them towards victory, it completely erases that deck. And that is kind of a problem. But I will say this. Your opponent, if they don't know that that's your plan, that's probably not how they're going to play their bait and switch, because that's not really the best way to use it, because most people won't walk into that. So it's like this weird pull and push. And I got to imagine in playtesting, half of the playtesters were like, bait and switch is busted and shouldn't be in the game. And the other half were like, no. It's this check. We have to have it. And all you got to do is play smart. And I bet that's a card where there was a lot of grumbling and discussions, we'll say. Friendly discussions.
Yeah. And time will tell whether or not we still think that in a month. People might, just learn how to play around it, and then that'll be that. So we will see.
Yep. Time will tell. We'll see how many chains it is. Let's predict. I say a bait and switch deck with no other dominating cards will be 0 chains.
0 chains, interesting.
Yep. But I think most of them will have one because Shadows has like 1 million broken cards.
Yeah. Just playing Shadows gives you 1 chain automatically.
I think so. Really? There's so many, those urchins. Play, steal 1. Play, steal 1. Play, steal 1.
So good.
What? That's absurd. I get a creature and an amber, and I take one of yours. That's a broken card. And it's a common, and there's a deck with 3 of them that I've been really enjoying.
Yeah.
Okay. In case you want to see some of these games I've been playing, I do stream pretty regularly right now at Tiny Grimes on Twitch. Probably that's only going to go for another week or so. Then school starts? What? They expect me to teach? I thought they just paid me all year to not teach, Mike. This is weird.
That's what they should be doing.
I know.
Don't they know that you've got Switch content to make?
I know. How am I going to make all this content? I'm going to be in the classroom, read the following pages and ignore what I'm doing in the corner over here. Oh, man.
Yeah.
It's going to be bad. I'll be like, hold on, Mike. Jimmy has a question. Yes, Jimmy? No, the Egyptians did not live in Italy. Jeez. All right. Next up, I think we should talk about... So we played a whole bunch of games. And I know for me, every time I play with a deck I haven't seen before, I find some new card that I'm like, oh, dang, that card is amazing. So let's talk about 3 cards that we've each been kind of almost introduced to this week that we think are really good that maybe we hadn't seen as much before. You want to go first, Mike?
Sure. So I'm going to go with a card that I didn't actually play in the games against you. I played it against Jay, and it is a card called Dysania or something like that. Dysania.
Okay.
And it is a rare Logos creature. 4 power. And it says play. Your opponent discards each of their archived cards, and you gain 1 amber for each card discarded in this way. So
that's really good.
Yeah, I was playing against Jay. He was also playing a Logos deck,
Oh,
whose
poor Jay.
basically entire purpose was to archive stuff. So he ended up with 7 cards in his archives, and I played this, discard all of them, and gain 7 amber. And man, that felt so good. Um,
Boy, even if
it's
you had gained 1 amber, that would have felt great. Like you
yeah,
disrupted his whole plan and gained 1 amber, and instead you got a key and took away his whole plan.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
crazy town. Wow.
Yeah, so it's probably a card that you get hit with once, and then you're like, okay, I can like archive a max of 2 cards now against this deck.
Yeah, against
Um,
that deck. The problem is since it's a rare, I don't think you can play around it.
yeah,
Like you can't play
unless
around
you
that, right?
know that it's well, no, unless you know that it's there,
Right.
then you can't. But
That's what makes this game so challenging. Are
it's
the
really
really
interesting.
brutal rares that you can't play around
Yeah,
until like you're later in the tournament. You're like, hey, Mike, did the Logos? What rare thing did the Logos deck have? You're like, that's scouting, and you're like, it's not scouting. It's called in between round chattering. They're very
yeah.
different. Oh man, yeah, it's gonna be crazy. All right, my card, the first one is the Ember Imp. I believe he has 2 power. I might be wrong on that, but I don't really care about that. What is amazing about this guy is he's a disc creature that says your opponent may only play 2 cards their next turn. So what that basically says, actually, his actual text says, your opponent must choose the house in which they have removal to kill this creature. Because if they let it live, they will lose for sure. And so to me, it's a very disruptive creature where if your opponent only has 1 card in the house to remove that guy, they're probably playing it because it's not worth playing 2 in another house and then knowing they still have to take care of it next turn. So,
Yeah.
and if they don't have removal, Mike, oh my goodness, ball game.
Yeah, it definitely becomes a problem. It's a card that you have to answer. I think that's part of the power of it, is that like your opponent, like when you play it, it just demands an answer. And if your opponent doesn't have it, then they're going to be behind for the rest of the game.
And I believe, Mike, it's a common.
I think it is too.
Okay, crazy town.
So good.
What you got for us, Mike?
All right. I've got a Sanctum upgrade
Ooh,
called Shoulder Armor.
that sounds
And it is, well, this creature's on a flank. It gets +2 armor and +2 power. So there were a couple games, I'm pretty sure, that we played where you started off with Frankus with this on him with a bulwark next to him.
Sure did.
And yeah, and he had 5 armor and 8 power.
I think
And
one time he might have taken a damage.
maybe one. And at that point, he's just unkillable. So,
Yes. Except there's tons of board removal that says like kill
yes.
everyone power 3 or more.
yes, very very true, very true.
But you didn't play that.
But there's a lot of other like board removals that are like deal 3 damage to each creature,
Yeah.
deal 2 damage to each creature, and those don't affect him at all.
Yeah, he laughs.
So yeah, it makes that dude very very resilient, and he gets to capture an amber every time he kills something, which he's going to be doing every single turn because he has 8 power and 5 armor. So.
Yep. And I got to imagine you get an amber when you play it. The upgrade. Most of those
Let
have
me
it.
see. Yes, you do.
That's to me what makes those upgrades worth playing. To me, otherwise it's
Yeah.
not even worth playing. But you get an amber already. Now you're making Francis. I call him Francis. It's easier for him to get more amber. So yeah, seems like a reasonable card. All right,
Yeah,
my
cool.
next one is Experimental Therapy. And this is a Logos card that says it's an upgrade. Stick it on a creature, you exhaust that creature and stun them, and they get every house. And so at first I was actually thinking this was a defensive card. Like I would play this against your guy. It exhausts them, so you can't even use them next turn, and it stuns them, so you can't use them the next turn. And I was like, I'm not sure if that's good enough, because then in 3 turns they get to use them every time. And then I used it once offensively and put it on my guy. And I was like, so I'll exhaust him to reap. Then I'll put this on him, exhaust him. He's already exhausted. Stun him. Next turn, he'll unstun. And then he just destroys the world every single turn I get to use him. That card is amazing. I can see from the look on your face, you didn't think you could use it defensively. Am I wrong? Does it only say your creature?
I don't know. I'm looking that up right now because yeah, I didn't know that, or I wasn't thinking that you could upgrade your opponent's characters,
I
but
don't
it's
know,
totally
actually.
possible.
And that's the problem. I thought the card was so bad that I was assuming that must be what you had to do.
No, you're right. Yeah, you can. It's just upgrades enter play attached to a creature chosen by the player who controls the upgrade.
Yeah, so it's pretty flexible. Like if you really need to lock a creature down for 1 or 2 turns, you can do that, but it will backfire horribly on you eventually. Or you can just put it on your own guy. Like I love to put it on like the guys that say Reap Archive a card or something disgusting where you're just like every single round you better kill this guy. That's some fun stuff.
But that is really, really interesting. I actually really like the fact that you can play it on your opponent's creatures. It gives you some more sort of avenues of play. Makes you think a little bit more about upgrades in general.
Yeah, something like Shoulder Armor
very cool.
Doesn't become a dead card if you don't have any creatures then. You just play it on your opponent's guy. Yeah, it's probably not a great idea to give him Shoulder Armor, but you get an Amber.
Yeah. I mean, if you just need it, sure. And if you got something to kill it along with it, like you Shoulder Armor and then you play the, everything with 2 or more power dies, like, sweet.
Yep, we got there.
Like if you have like a 1 power elusive guy that I can't kill, I can give it the Shoulder Armor and then play the everything 3 or more dies.
Ooh,
that's a pretty spicy play.
That's not very nice. I like that. I like that a lot, actually. That's a cool combo.
That's very, very cool.
Now we're going next level, Mike. I like where this is going. All right, what's your last card, Mike?
My last card, man, this card wrecked me good.
Ooh.
This is Control the Weak.
Yes!
Yeah, so it's a discard. It's common. I think it gives you 1 amber when you play it.
We gotta stop for a second. There are some freaking busted cards that are commons, Mike. All right, go ahead. Tell us about this broken common.
All right, so it says play. Choose a house on your opponent's identity card. They must choose that house as their active house next turn.
That doesn't sound that bad. So what? You randomly choose and you're wrong and they get to play 4 cards. It can't be that bad.
No. Every player is going to play it like that. They'll just flip a coin. So the correct way to play this, and the way that you played it against me, is I had a turn where I played like 1 or 2 like Sanctum cards, let's say. And then you play that card and call Sanctum, and now I have a max of 2 Sanctum cards in my hand, probably, and maybe nothing on the board. And then I just have to say pass, which is what happened twice. Twice you were able to time walk me. I had literally nothing I could play, and I had to just be like, all right, pass.
So, you know what feels really good in this game is like explosive turns where you get 18 cards. But you know what feels better in this game? When your opponent has to smile and pass and do literally nothing like they didn't get a turn. Oh, it makes me feel so good. Yeah,
it was good.
The most powerful way to play this is you play a creature to the board that must be answered, right? Like it just has to be killed that turn. They feel the pressure. They only have 1 card from that house, but in their head they're going, at least I'm killing this dude. Yeah. Then you control the weak, and now they're stuck.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I think it's a very, very like high skill cap card. I really like it. I think it's really, really interesting. Creates some really, really interesting like play around sort of considerations where it's like if I'm playing against Dis, like this is a common, so it's like there's a decent chance you have in your deck. Like maybe I just straight up don't play only 1 card from house, or maybe I bait you into it where I only play 1 card from the house, but I actually have like 4 of that card left in my hand. So some really interesting considerations with this. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, the point that it's common seems absurd. Like you're gonna see it, and you're gonna see it regularly. This is not gonna be a every now and then kind of card. Though we haven't seen many decks with it, which is kind of weird.
True.
Like I've played maybe 4 disc decks, and that was the first one that had it. So
yeah. Well, there's like what 50 cards from each house, so and only 12 in a deck.
So yeah, and there's duplicates usually.
That's pretty cool.
So it's usually more like 9 to 10. So yeah, good point. Oh man, crazy town. My last card is gonna sound like a weird one. 2 cost, Silvertooth Shadows. Doesn't have anything special except comes into play ready, which lets you do all kinds of crazy stuff. Like yes, it doesn't sound that great to drop them in and just reap, but let's say you really need to kill that what was it called, the Ember Imp. Boom, drop him in, kill the Ember Imp. Plenty of other stuff you can kill. You can put upgrades on him and then reap and do 4 damage to somebody, or reap and steal 1. Like there's all kinds of cool combinations with him, and I just feel like it's really powerful to be able to drop a dude in and just use him immediately.
Totally. There's this really, really cool card in Logos called Rocket Boots, and there's
I didn't
another
know
cool
this
card
one.
in Logos that lets you play a non-Logos card. So like you say Logos, you use the Logos card that lets you play the Shadows guy that comes in and play ready,
Hmm.
and then the Rocket Boots is an upgrade that says this creature gains fight or reap if this is the first time this creature was used this
Oh yeah.
turn. Ready it. So you, you put them into play. You play the Rocket Boots. You reap and then you reap or reap and then fight. Like it's just so flexible and so cool.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome.
Totally agree. He's
A lot of fun
awesome.
things you can do with it.
Ah, Mike, can't wait for next week. We're going to have a whole nother pile of cards. And FFG, I think, just started their stream about, a whole bunch of
Ooh.
stuff about their unique games. I know I'm going to go watch it. I'll probably have a reaction maybe later today, maybe tomorrow. And so, Mike, thanks so much for coming on the Welcome to the Crucible, as always. And Archons out there, keep playing, keep having fun. Let us know where your hype meter's at. Is it 1,000 yet? The scale's only 1 to 10, but is it 1,000?
Mine's 1,000.